Suffering is hard to talk about. The words we use almost never match what we actually feel. Even if we describe every detail of what happened to us, we're only pointing at the source of a sound. We're not recreating it. We circle around it, gesture toward it, but we can't make another person hear it the way we do. In this sense, suffering is a bit like schizophrenia or any other mental illness. It can't be passed from one person to another. It's locked deep inside each individual with no direct way to share it. Each of us hears only our own painful song. Other people accept that it's real mostly because they have their own songs that no one else can hear either. But this isn't only about suffering. Joy, sadness, boredom, anger, any emotion is just as schizophrenic. No one can feel it exactly the way we do. All we really have is communication, words, gestures, facial expressions. It's a very imperfect tool that lets us hum our inner songs to each other. The rhythm is off, we miss notes, the tempo is messy. That's how our emotions sound on the outside, shaky, distorted versions of something much clearer inside. In a way, our whole life is a constant comparison between the melody of pain in our own head and the quiet hum of suffering we pick up from others. It doesn't matter how this hum appears, a twisted face, a grimace, a scream, a visible wound, or a string of words and cultural signs. All of that is just a trace of suffering, not the suffering itself. To really understand that someone is in pain, we have to interpret. We see or hear a signal and try to match it with our own idea of what pain is. If it's physical pain, we're usually more ready to believe it. If someone says they're hurting or we clearly see it in their body, we tend to accept that as real. But imagine a school kid who says, "My stomach hurts." Our first thought might be, are they faking it to skip the school? Are they using this hum of pain to get something they want? And if we already dubbed physical pain, what do we do with psychological suffering? What about pain that doesn't come from a visible wound or some clear problem in the body? Something you can't point to on X-ray or scan? How do we know then that someone is really suffering? We still look at the same things, words, behavior, body language, but are we ready to trust those signs the same way that we trust a broken leg or a high temperature? Are we ready to treat someone else's quiet hum of emotional pain as a sign of the same kind of pain that we know in ourselves? Or do we write it off as fake, exaggerated, or simply unimportant, just because it looks different from our own, or because the person who feels it is different from us? Usually, when we talk about suffering, we mean a feeling whose cause lies in our head, whether conscious or unconscious, even if it's felt as sharp physical pain from a clear illness or injury. But why? Why do we dislike suffering so much? Why do we avoid it, fear it, even hate it? Maybe because suffering is almost always tied to loss, to threat, or to damage done to something we deeply care about. To suffer is to be harmed in one way or another. We don't suffer over things that don't matter to us. A child cries over a lost candy or toy and adult says, "It's okay, we'll buy another one." The child doesn't know yet if they will get this candy ever again. For them, it feels like a total, final loss, as if this was the last candy in the world. Only an adult can draw new paths for desire, promising to replace lost item. The adult is too experienced to suffer over a candy. They know it's easy to replace, but they also are experienced enough to suffer over a lost job. There, just like a child, they face uncertainty. Will I get back what really matters to me? My favorite work or the money I used to buy what I love? They might not know how their desire for work, for stability, for a certain way of living will ever find a new path. Losing a job can feel like losing the person you are trying to become. Your identity, your status, your context, your opportunities, even your friends. Adults can suffer even more than children because their desires are more complex, more layered, and that makes them more painful. Suffering is like a lump in your throat between you and something you value, an obstacle you can't remove right now. It's like being thirsty and seeing the glass of water, but not being able to reach it. This lamp gets in the way of your connection to what you want. It breaks the usual link between you and what you care about. It doesn't matter whether the loss is final or only a threat or just a small scratch. The forms of suffering are different, but the core is the same. Take death. Death is one of the clearest, most radical forms of suffering. When someone we love dies, their image turns into something like a museum piece. Our relationship with them freezes into a shadow that can no longer be changed by the person who used to live it. The object of our desire slips away, because when someone is important to us, it's not just their memory we value, it's the fact that they can move, speak, act, and keep changing that memory. We want that possibility of being interrupted mid-sentence. We don't want a completely fixed and changing image we can't interact with. A monologue is only truly interesting when there is a chance of dialogue, of an answer that can make things richer, less predictable, more alive. Sometimes interruptions annoy us, but sometimes when two passionate people talk, interruptions are a sign of closeness. Both have so much to say that they trip over each other's words. Both have so much to say that they trip over each other's words. Each interruption is not aggression or boredom, it's a deeper involvement in each other's desire. When someone dies, our conversation with them becomes a closed murmur. We grieve not only because this monologue will never turn into anything new, but also because it will never again be interrupted. Not even by something silly, awkward, or out of place. The object of desire slips away, leaving us only with the memory of the past that once led to it. And now we're left with our suffering and with the task of patching the holes in our desiring body, which now bleeds from the impossibility of reaching what it longs for. And we don't replace the lost person by finding someone identical. What we try to replace are the functions they had in our life, the roles, the benefits, the connections they gave us. If it was a beloved partner, we now have to look for new, simple, accessible ways to get what they used to bring. Care, intimacy, recognition, shared time, shared dreams. Desire needs a clear, convenient highway, a road leading toward a point it will never completely reach. Along this road we get small pleasures, brief satisfactions, but none of them is the final destination. They just keep desire moving. Do you stop wanting to be attractive to others or to yourself after buying just one beautiful thing? Of course not. Desire never truly reaches its object. It either suffers from not getting there, or it gives up and stops moving. Most of the time, we're on a long journey where the book, the purchase, or the achievement is just a sign on the road. Between these signs stretch long distances of a road movie, in which our desire is the main character. We suffer when something blocks this road, when there is an obstacle or even just a threat of one, or when the final destination suddenly becomes clearly impossible. In this sense, hope is a kind of desire that tries to ignore suffering as an obstacle. Hope doesn't change the goal, it doesn't move the endpoint, it treats suffering not as woe, but as part of the journey itself. Sometimes this looks like persistence that will be rewarded in the end, but sometimes it's not strength at all. It's a sign of powerlessness, of being stuck on one single object, one person, one dream, which path is almost impossible. In this situation, a person takes a step back and does something very subtle. They no longer simply want their loved one to be alive. They want to keep wanting that. The object at the end of the road changes. Now they want the desire itself. From this moment on, their satisfaction doesn't come from the loved one's presence. It comes from the fact that they still desire them, that they remain faithful, that they don't betray this special figure inside their inner world. This is one of the ways we behave when we face suffering we cannot overcome. Instead of looking for new ways to live without what was taken from us, we freeze in this state, afraid for some reason to betray it. This is where the aestheticization of suffering begins. We get stuck in this almost impossible longing. It's like keeping a dead, useless part of the body, carefully wrapped and preserved because we're afraid to remove it, but still want to go on living. The fear of becoming one-armed cripple leads to a strange compromise. We keep the arm, but only as a source of fear and pain. It no longer serves any real purpose. It only reminds us that we could lose it completely. The sharp pain of loss can mean two very different things. Either a future healing or a chronic condition. And it doesn't always hit right away. Sometimes we just can fully accept that this person will never again interrupt our monologue, and that this goodbye is final, not temporary. Suffering is, in a way, a demand for its own removal. When we communicate our suffering, we are asking for help in ending it. It's unbearable exactly because it demands an end. Sometimes what is unbearable is not even the situation itself, but the fact that we cannot share it here and now with someone else. For one person, a broken vase is just a small household problem. For another, it's the collapse of something with long-term value, something that must be restored. By gluing the vase, buying a new one, or somehow working through the loss. Right now, I'm supposed to have this vase that stands for something meaningful to me. It is a mediator of desire. It simply has to be there. Even if I barely notice it, even if it's covered in dust. But the moment it breaks, that quiet has to be, turns into loud, it should be here. Something that no longer attracted active attention, that no longer worked as a highway for desire, suddenly stops being a path and turns into a barricade. By the weight of its loss, it pulls desire inward, and now desire runs straight into its own helplessness. Things get even worse when suffering is caused by damage to or disappearance of something living, something present. Then he or she should be here becomes a kind of terror inside desire, directed at the person who carries it. Now we are ready to do almost anything just to calm that desire down, but often we can't. We become a hostage to a despot inside ourselves. A despot that demands impossible things, like bringing back what cannot be restored, and punishes us again and again every time those demands are not met. Suffering and pain are the worst possible managers of human life. They give us only one clear instruction: get rid of them. And in order to do that, we sometimes choose good actions and sometimes terrible ones. Thanks for watching. Tell me what you think. I will be grateful for any support for the channel. Like, subscribe, or if you'd like to read some original essays, follow what I'm doing, or just talk, you can follow me on Patreon for free. Bye!